Anthony with the pump fake and a one dribble inside to the long two, and he makes it. That's been his game his whole career. But look at him smiling. We go, my bad. The long two.
Welcome to another episode of The Long Two. I am Pete Rogers. He is Natty Wallach, and we are the least efficient fantasy basketball podcast you'll ever hear, but we get the job done. Basketball has started. We got preseason games going on as we speak. I'd be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that Ben Simmons hit a three-pointer today. I just wanted to just say that and get that out of the way because we are recording whilst the games are going on. But I just wanted to announce to everyone that did indeed happen. Yes, we can all go crazy now that Ben Simmons has taken a three-pointer in a preseason game. So let's all control ourselves and calm down.
Are you a Celtics fan, by the way?
No, I'm not. I wouldn't dare call myself as that.
So you weren't just talking shit. It was like, oh, good for him. That's adorable.
Exactly. No,
he made a three-pointer.
I just think this is a moment for us in the Twitter basketball, internet basketball community to take a bow. We made Ben Simmons a better player by telling him that he was a coward for not shooting threes, and now he's shooting threes. So we have made Ben Simmons a better player. So
wait, can I ask you a serious question?
Of course.
If he has developed an actual three-pointer, do you think he could win MVP this year?
Yes, 100%. If he can shoot 35% from three, he could. I think he's a lock for the best player in fantasy and possibly MVP. Don't you agree?
They could maybe win 60 games,
Yeah. Well, and then all of a sudden, any kind of debate that you've ever had about, can he and Embiid play together gets thrown out the window because suddenly there's not a spacing issue. Right. I think, we'll see. He's taken one. So
that must be your nightmare, dude. Like, what if it actually happens? And then all the shit that everyone has been talking forever. And you're like, oh, fuck, we did it to him.
Shit,
now
made him
he's an actual MVP.
Yeah. Well, not too worried. We'll see. Show it to me in a game that matters, Ben. Show it to me in a game that matters.
Okay, cool. Yep. Cool. Double down.
Yep. Yep. So let's talk about some of our favorite fantasy sleepers for 2019. Might as well jump into the deep end and name some players who you actually might watch during preseason games and keep in mind as you're watching the games go down.
So sleepers mean different things to different people.
Smart.
And I, tried to identify some dudes in different ways, in different sleeper ways that I thought would be helpful to people in their drafts while it's going on. And we're just a couple of weeks away from the start of the NBA season. My first one is Patrick Beverley.
Ooh, okay. Not maybe a sleeper. So what's your definition of a sleeper for him here?
Well, he is currently being drafted outside the top 150.
Oh, okay. So that's a sleeper.
I just think it's not nuts because he doesn't score a lot. But last year, he scored less than he usually does. He's 2 years ago, he scored 12 points a game. And I think that with Paul George out for a long time, maybe, and just with better players on the team, he's going to have more assists. His steals per game will go back up. And his field goal attempts, which were just 6 last year, will also go up. He's a ferocious defender. He's maybe kind of the heart and soul of that team. He's really fought his way into becoming a starting point guard. And I just love him next to Shamet and next to Kawhi and Paul George. That's just crazy to me. So I think he's in store for a really big year.
Yeah. And defense is always something that in fantasy you want to make sure you at least have a couple guys on your team who are going to reliably get you stocks, steals and blocks. And Pat Bev has routinely been able to do that. So that's a good guy to have on your back. I mean, he falls into the kind of range of that. And Marcus Smart is the same kind of way where you're getting those guys on your team for their defense, but then they also are able to balance it out and give you points across the board. I like that. And he's going, outside of the top one. You said 130.
Yeah, I mean, it's on ESPN. I saw outside of the top 150, but again, like people are having early drafts, so
Yeah.
who knows? Um, I just sort of think that a point guard who's going to have Kawhi and Paul George is probably going to do pretty well. And
Oh, you think? Wow, what a
it,
what a
I
bold
know,
statement coming from you.
Thank God, I'm a doctor. I didn't go to fantasy school for nothing. Please address me as such. It's he took 6 shots a game last year. That's fucking nuts.
That's
He's gonna have
preposterous.
yeah. Like he's gonna have 4 more. Like he'll shoot at least twice a quarter. Like maybe more than that. It's him and Shamit out as the guards to start, and then Sweet Lou comes in. But I think Patrick Beverly is going to play a lot because I think Paul George is not coming back anytime soon.
Yeah, no, and that's increased minutes and increased assists and increased times to score. I like your Pat Bev, and I'm going to talk about my first sleeper is a point guard as well, who I feel like people are. I have a theme through my sleepers, and it's guys who had shortened seasons by injury, who maybe you've forgotten about. So my first guy, Jeff Teague, Minnesota. Who's I think he was 90 last time I looked, around 90s in ESPN. He only played 42 games last year. He was injured, but in those 42 games had 12.1 points per game and a career high 8.2 assists. And if you go back to 2017, which was his first year with Minnesota, he averaged 33 minutes, 14.2 points, 1.2 threes, 3 boards, 7 assists, and 1.7 stocks. The beauty here is that he is stepping into an amazing situation in Minnesota. Obviously, there's no Jimmy Buckets anymore, which, just in general, that means there's more shots for everyone in Minnesota. But more so, there's no one else at point guard. Derrick Rose is in Detroit, and Tyus Jones is now in Memphis. So this is Jeff Teague's. Like, he's running this offense. He is the point guard for the Minnesota Timberwolves heading into this season, and he's shown that he can be a viable fantasy player when he is healthy and getting good minutes. And, I think that that's exactly what's going to happen. He's someone who I think a lot of people will kind of overlook because of the fact he only played 42 games last year. And so when you rank by season stats or whatever, he won't show up in, among the kind of top 20 some odd point guards, but I think he could certainly finish there. And so he's someone I'm definitely targeting in all my drafts.
So just a small quibble. He wasn't injured. It's just that he's so boring that nobody noticed that he played every single game.
Oh, okay. That would happen. That's what.
Yeah.
Cool.
He played every minute of every game.
Actually, if you go to
I don't see anyone.
If you go to basketballreference.com, that's what they say. They say he played 42 games, but also played in the rest of them. He just was forgotten about.
Right. When you look up snore in the dictionary, it's just a picture of him. You're totally right, though. That team needs a ball distributor, and that's what Teague does. I do think that Minnesota is a team ripe for a trade, and I wonder if it's a stealth destination for Kyle Lowry, maybe. But there's no doubt that going into this season, like, he's one of the most he's one of the most needed dudes
Oh, yeah.
on a team because like Wiggins doesn't distribute the ball. It's just like this team it hasn't cratered. You can't crater when you have Karl Anthony Towns, but they have to re-identify themselves and figure out what they are just for this year, just for the first 20 games. And that means passing. Like, you're going to have to get everybody involved, and you're going to have to try to optimize Cat. And that means you're going to have a smart, effective dude running the offense, and that's what he is. So, I totally agree with that. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
I also, 2 things. One, this could be, as we go into the era of unicorn big men, we might see Cat's assist numbers take a big jump. We might start seeing Cat as a joker kind of facilitator of this offense. The other thing is, and I'm asking you this, Natty, my fantasy basketball league is drafting soon, and we put in our keepers. Am I crazy tell me I'm not crazy for doing this. I am not having Andrew Wiggins as one of my keepers. I feel like that's a very sane thing to do.
Without knowing what the specific rules are, I think I can safely say, fuck that guy. You can do better. I mean, I feel bad for saying that because, like, the dude, like, if it's 2 years ago, then I think he's averaging, what, like 22 points or something? Like, he
Yeah.
gives you empty calorie points. Um, I think that the narrative has really poisoned him and that everyone thinks that he's not a shitty player, but a one-dimensional player.
Well, it's also unfair because of the fact that he came into the league with just an absurd amount of hype. I mean,
Sure.
like Zion levels of hype where everyone's just like, this guy's it. He was
He
the
looks
piece.
the part.
He looks the part, but like that was the thing, is that everyone was just like, this is the next great NBA player, and it just hasn't worked out for him. He hasn't been terrible. Like, he's a serviceable 2-guard or 3-guard. Because of the fact that he came in with such high expectations, we're like, oh my God, Andrew Wiggins, wow, what a bust. And he's been a fine player, but he's not the one I'm keeping around.
It's like he hasn't seemed to have gotten more effective at defense, which I think in the real world outside of fantasy is a pretty good indicator of a player's IQ. Like, if you can't get better just from reps at defense and knowing where to go and how hard to play, then that's a big red flag for me. But at the same time, he's still young. He's still pretty good offensively in certain ways. But I mean, like, I don't know where I would draft him. I'm working on my top 150 right now.
Ooh, little tease coming to fake teams.
Look at that. Yeah. Yep. But I don't want to draft him either. Like, no one wants to draft him. It doesn't seem like he has any kind of constituency at all. I think everyone tries to put him into trades on the trade machine, but it's like, why would anyone do that?
Right. Why would anyone?
Because he's so expensive. Like, if he was only 75% as expensive, then I think the people would think about him differently. But
and a change of scenery could do him well, do him good.
Sure.
It's just that contract is massive. Who's your second sleeper?
Okay, my second sleeper is a dude we've talked about before and a guy whose ownership really irritated me last year. It's Brook fucking Lopez, who is... I just can't stand this man. He's getting drafted on ESPN right now, 103rd. He ended the year last year top 25. Like, he's the only player in NBA history to average 2+ 3-pointers and 2+ blocks a game. He is, without a doubt, one of the most valuable pieces you can have in fantasy basketball. It's fucking great. Like, I think that maybe people don't want to draft him because of FIBA and of what happened.
I don't think that's
during the tournament, because he just didn't look good and he didn't play. But it's like those are totally different rules. And there's no reason to believe that last season was an aberration when all of the indicators show that he was trending up. Like, he was trying to do these things, He is a new, even though he's old, he's a new kind of big who can protect the rim and also space the floor by shooting outside. That's what everybody will want to do this year. Miles Turner is another guy that is probably going to try to start doing this. Like, centers, it's strange, but centers now sort of clog the lane for everybody else, rather than everybody else trying to open up space for the big. So when you are able to shoot as well as Brook Lopez can, and he is one of the best volume 3-point shooters in the NBA, and you get blocks, which are one of the rarest, it's just, I can't fucking believe he's getting drafted outside of the top 100. That's so nuts.
I mean, I think you touched on it. Is just that people feel like this is like I feel like everyone kept watching last year and being like, well, eventually Brook Lopez will stop being amazing in fantasy. Like, and just eventually it's just he's going to come crashing down. And he never did. And credit to him. Like, he was phenomenal all year long. And so, but I think that expectation people just have because they're just like, it doesn't compute. They're like, wait, Brook Lopez shouldn't be a top 25 fantasy player. But you're right. And I think the nice thing about him too, when people start worrying about his age and, just like centers wear and tear brings them down, you get injured, you miss games, that whole 9 yards. But because of the fact that he has developed this 3-point shot and more or less on the offensive side, just hangs around the 3-point line, right? He doesn't really bang in the paint until on defense. Well, that saves a lot of contact off of his body. And so I think that he's going to probably age a little bit better. Certainly his game will age well. He's a 7-foot 3-point shooter. Like, you can't cover that. So I think there's
I mean, block rate translates. People that block well in college, block well in the pros, and he can shoot over people. He's like turned into a little bit of what Dirk used to be. Dirk showed everyone how a big can age well if you can shoot well.
Yeah.
It's like you can shoot over people if you're 7 feet tall, I know
funny how that
seems
works.
like right. It seems crazy, but you're taller than everyone and you can release over everyone and your shot doesn't disappear. So I mean, I'm really, goddamn, I don't want to be irritated by this all season again.
No, I mean, and he is a cheaper Miles Turner in fantasy, right? They're both more or less the same kind of player. They're both going to get you two categories that are really important in fantasy, or certainly blocks are hard to get, and 3-pointers are now the rage in fantasy. And so both of those guys are going to get you both of those categories, but Brook Lopez is going a hell of a lot later. So you miss out on Miles Turner, you got Brook Lopez there, and they could give you even production. Who knows?
Can I give you the players that are getting drafted right after Brook Lopez, who again was top 25 last year? Karis LeVert is next at 104th, who I also love. Go Blue. And Josh Richardson is 105th, who I also love and was a great pickup by Philly. Like, both of those players are good and I love them, but they're not top 25 fantasy players.
Right.
That's fucking crazy. Brook Lopez is. And by the way, the Bucks got rid of one of their best players, Malcolm Brogdon. So maybe Brook Lopez will get even more shot attempts this year.
Yeah,
I'm so pissed, man.
You're
God
convincing
damn it,
me that
dude.
I'm going to just like go unnecessarily hard for Brook Lopez in my fantasy team now.
Take him in your first round.
Seriously.
Just do it.
That's just how it's got to be.
Low.
We're going to stay on the center position because my second sleeper is also a center. Doesn't shoot threes though as much, but Wendell Carter Jr., another guy whose season was shortened because of injuries. On ESPN, he's going also in that kind of mid-90s area. He played 44 games, averaged 10.3 points, 7 boards, 1.8 assists, and almost 2 stocks per game on 25 minutes. And just like Jeff Teague, he's coming back from injury. People are probably sleeping on him, and he's going to have a bigger role because A, he's a very talented young player, and so naturally Chicago is wanting to get him more involved in their offense. And B, there's now no Robin Lopez there, so he's going to see a lot more minutes and in a much more expanded role, and is going to give you. I mean, he already almost averaged a double-double on 25 minutes in 44 games. And so, like, who's to say that he can't take that step and get you a double-double and, 1.5 blocks a game? So that's someone who I think people are going to sleep on, forget about, or just not expect as much from him. But he could certainly perform and is going much cheaper than maybe what he'll actually end up.
The weird thing about the Bulls this year is that they all of a sudden seem to have a lot of pretty functional, maybe good players.
Yeah, they're a put together team.
Right. So if they're at their peak, like what if they just max out and it's really, really, really good? It's hard to believe that Wendell wouldn't be in the middle of that and also be doing really, really well. I don't think there's anything we've seen from him that suggests he is not a good player. am a little skeptical of their coaching,
Mhm.
and I don't really know how hard. Like, if I were in charge of the team, I don't really know how hard or how many minutes I would let Carter play. Um, but I think he's going to be great this year. I mean, I don't know if he'll be a top 50 player, but I think it would be strange if he wasn't top 75, top 80.
Right. And like you mentioned at the very top, like there are variations or differing definitions of sleeper. And some of the guys we've already talked about are guys who could vastly outperform their ADP. And I think Wendell Carter has that potential, but I think you're right that more likely than not, what you're getting is you're getting a guy who has a pretty high floor at a cheaper rate. And even if it's like, 15 picks, you're getting him 15
Yeah.
picks later. That's totally fine. You're getting him after you're able to get two other guys or what have you, before where his spot would have been. So he's someone who I think you can get in drafts pretty late, and he's going to consistently always give you fantasy production as long as he stays healthy. And that's what you want.
And I think as opposed to the Bucks, where you want Brook Lopez, the center, out at the 3-point line,
Mm,
for the Bulls, it's Wendell and then 4 shooters. Like, you
right.
don't want Lauri Markkanen inside, the power forward. Otto Porter is going to be on the perimeter. Zach LaVine is always going to be drilling inside, but um, there's a fit to the old school center for Carter that is going to help optimize his efficiency. Like, I wonder how well he'll do in field goal percentage this year because, like, you just don't need him taking mid range shots. Like, he's not going to be on the perimeter at all. He will be inside.
Right.
And they'll be feeding him, and he's just, he might look very old school this year as one of the, I don't know, maybe like 10 to 12 centers that really like going in the paint.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the guys we've seen, speaking of preseason that's currently going on, Steven Adams has hit a three, and so has Boban. So talk about centers who
I
normally
mean,
live in the
yeah,
paint. They're hitting
but
threes now.
like, come on. We say this every year. The preseason doesn't mean
No, it
anything.
doesn't mean
Like, all
shit.
the Zion
Yeah,
highlights
Ben.
are
Yeah, Ben. You hear
funny.
that? You hear that, Ben? Doesn't mean
Right.
shit.
Yeah, exactly. It's like no one's playing defense. All
No,
the Zion highlights, you like, don't watch them for the dunks. Watch them for where all the defenders are positioned. They're literally getting out of his way.
I know,
And
but
the
those dunks
reason they're
look
doing that is
so
because no
nice.
one wants to fucking get injured in the preseason. And of course, this 280-pound behemoth is running right at you. Obviously, you get out of the way and just let him dunk. Like,
Over
these
under.
aren't posters. It's just like, I mean, dunks are cool, obviously, but it's so funny when you just like watch dudes take 2 steps back and like, oh my God, look at what Zion did. Yeah, well, almost anyone could do that if they're not getting defended.
Over under the number of rims Zion breaks this year.
I think they make them in a way that you like,
I still
if
trust him to
Shaq
break
can't
at
do it.
least one. Every dunk he has made, and I totally agree with everything you said, but every dunk he has made has such violent ferocity that I
Sure.
just feel like at some point he's going, like, if he has 5 of those in a game consecutively, the 6th one, the rim is just gonna be like, fuck this, I can't handle it anymore.
No, you can tell he's savvy because not only does he have soft hands, like that feed from Lonzo, I really
Oh,
liked a lot.
yeah.
Um, but he knows what people want, obviously.
Of
Like,
course.
he's
I'm not gonna lay
to a
that
certain
shit in.
extent, all athletes are performers. Like, they're doing it for the fans. They
Mhm.
are in front of people all of the time. They know what people want. So yeah, fucking hit home runs, fucking dunk as hard as you can. But um, speaking of dunks, if you're in a league that counts dunks, I mean, I don't even think he'll be in the top 10 this year.
Ooh, hot take.
Yeah,
'Cause
but
'cause
like, who knows? I mean, I think the Pelicans are going to be really hard to predict
yeah.
because they have good young players and they have to find out what those good young players are. And especially with Brandon Ingram, he's almost more important to the future of the Pelicans than Zion because
Mhm.
they don't have him for as long. So you
Right,
have to find out what you
right.
think of him so that you can trade him if you don't think he's going to be part of the future. But if you think he can stick next to Zion and it's great, Jesus
That's
Christ.
a duo. That is a duo with Lonzo. Fuck that. Again, we talked about this last week, but if this Pelicans team doesn't make the playoffs, we're about to burn the NBA down.
It's just so. Oh God, the West is crazy.
All right, give me your last sleeper for this year.
Okay, I just popped a beer.
Is this in time with the sleeper? Should we all be prepared for just how amazing this call is going to be?
Oh, get ready, buddy, because I'm going to give you some stats.
Oh, fuck yes.
Yep. Okay, so my sleeper is getting drafted on ESPN right now outside of the top 125.
Okay.
2 years ago, this guy averaged 17 plus points per game, 2 plus rebounds per game, 2 plus assists per game, 5 plus 3-point attempts per game, and a 48 field goal percentage. Only 4 players matched or exceeded that line last year. So again, those numbers that I just said, those are from 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Only 4 players matched or exceeded that last year. Those 4 players are Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, and Kevin Durant.
All right.
Can you tell me, Pete, who the player is that I'm talking about?
Let me look. I'm quickly looking at names in that area. I mean, clearly it's John Wall.
No, it is not.
Is it? All right, this is my actual guess. Is it Eric Gordon?
It is not.
Oh.
2 years ago, Golden Gary Harris did that.
Oh, shit. I should have known that.
Yeah.
Yes, Gary Harris is a great call.
Yeah, it's absolutely annihilatingly crazy how good this guy could be. He's super young. The Nuggets are just jam-packed with talent right now. I don't know if they have too many good players, but you could see how maybe some dudes might get a little upset that they're not getting enough minutes.
Mm-hmm.
If Denver is a Bradley Beal destination, then Gary Harris is one of the players that will get sent back in the trade. Mm-hmm. And if DC can go into next year with a recuperating Dr. John Wall and Gary Harris, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Gary Harris is incredible. Everybody should be drafting him.
No, he is a great call. And also you sparked some guy who I was going to mention, but I don't have him in my official 3 sleepers, but I'm going to mention him anyways, just because he has looked so good in camp and he's an injured body who people will forget about, but he has just looked very, very promising. And let me quickly find Michael Porter Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Also someone who came in with a huge draft pedigree, was injured all of last season, and if he can stay healthy, he has looked phenomenal to start, their camp, and everything coming out of Denver has been nothing but positives in terms of his progression and how he's played. So he's going like way back in the 150s, I think. And so he's a name who I would stash and just see what happens.
Dude, he could be rookie of the year, couldn't he? Because he didn't play last year.
He could. You're right. Yeah.
I wonder what the odds are on that.
That's not a bad.
Although if you're Denver, don't you play conservative with him?
No, you definitely do. You're going to limit his minutes. You're not going to put him out there, especially if he
won't get the volume.
Right. Yeah. And especially because he's not going to start, and he's going to bounce between the 3 and the 4, which is going to be taken up by Millsap and by
Grant.
Grant, right. So
Will Barton will play.
He's got names in front of him.
Again, the Nuggets have everybody.
The Nuggets are fucking loaded. All right, I couldn't have a list of players. We couldn't talk about 6 sleepers without me mentioning at least one Boston Celtic. Gasp! I know, crazy of me, but
Is it Brad Stevens?
It's. For all of you,
listen, guys, I'm just going to start, okay?
For all of you who play in a league that awards successful out-of-bounds plays, Brad Stevens is the number 1 pick.
That's why Kevin Love should be a fucking Celtic, because he's so good at that. Whatever.
Jesus Christ. Could you imagine? Oh, fuck. Now
it would blow our – or maybe they'd clash. and
don't know.
things would get worse.
I don't
You're like,
know,
that's
man.
stupid.
Brad Stevens would design some just absurd shit where only Kevin Love could make the throw.
Yeah, he'd be like, listen, pass it out of bounds, but make sure it bounces back to
but
us.
has backspin and then it hits
Put
our guy
some
in the hand for the
English on
dunk.
it.
No, the Celtic I'm talking about is Jaylen Brown. We've mentioned him a few times on this pod. He's going 110 in the ESPN leagues. And even in the shit show that was the last year's Celtics, he managed to average 13 points, 4.2 boards, and 1.3 stocks in 25 minutes. But the reason I have him, I mean, those are all nice numbers, but also this is a contract year for him. He's said that he's already gone out and said that he is max money. And the Celtics said, yeah, okay, show it. So he's going to show it. He's likely entering this year as in the starting lineup, which he did his sophomore year and almost averaged 15 and 5 while shooting 39% from three. And maybe we'll even see hints of the 2017 playoff Jaylen, who averaged 18 a game. Like Jaylen Brown, I think of everyone on this Celtics team. Everyone, of course, is all in love with Jason Tatum, which I am too. We are on this podcast. Jason Tatum is great. He is an MVP. He could be an MVP player in his future. But in this 2018 season, I think that Jaylen Brown is going to be the guy the young person in the Celtics offense who's going to take that biggest step forward, and everyone's going to be like, oh shit, this guy actually is a baller and knows how to play and is like perfectly adapting to the NBA right now.
And he cut his hair, man. He's coming in aerodynamic.
Which is really
He's an ICBM aimed at the NBA. He's here to fucking destroy. I'm not a Celtics fan, thank God, but
just the worst.
I imagine, why would you want to be a Boston sports fan? Nothing good happens.
No, you're just such a
congratulations on your baseball season, by the way.
Yeah, fuck you.
But I feel like if I were a Celtics fan, I would want Tatum and Brown together forever. I would want them as the duo. These guys play so well together. They're perimeter players. They're both really smart. They both seem really cool. And you can always find a point guard and you can always find a center. And then, whatever, get another fucking
that's
wing.
what the Celtics are literally doing. The Celtics don't they don't really they have a whole hodgepodge at center. Fuck it. Dude, we're just going to wing with it and see what happens.
Oh my God. Taco, Cantor, and fucking Time Lord. I'm really...
Let's ride.
If I didn't have the drum, I'd be so jealous of your centers because it's just fun. Each one of them is different in a weird way. And Taco Fall highlights are pretty cool.
They are.
They're like Boban cool.
Don't worry. We'll talk about him when we get to fave things of the week.
Oh, sure. So I think those sleepers. Wait, do you have any honorable mentions?
No, I didn't have any honorable mentions. I mean, Michael Porter Jr. was my honorable mention, if you wanted to call it such.
I would like to name just a few dudes that I think are getting drafted too late. Robert Covington is going 113.
Your boy.
Yeah, I mean, no one gets the stocks like he does along with outside shots. 2 years ago, just look at what he did in Philly. If he's healthy, he's going to be a top 75 player at least. I think Danny Green, who's going 137, is a really, really important player for the Lakers.
Did you see his quote about how feels like he's playing with the most space he's ever had in his career?
Yeah. That's absolutely terrifying. He's right. It's just because LeBron and AD are going to just pick and roll the league to death. And that just means that Danny Green, who's this dude who's supposed to be standing back anyway because he's, better on defense than offense, he's just going to be fucking wide open. Jesus. What a great signing.
Nailing threes.
Yeah. I also think Eric Gordon, who's going 141, that's a little late. And also Dennis Smith Jr., who is the starting point guard for the New York Knicks, he's going 128. I don't know who the fuck else is going to be starting a point guard for them. So
they're going to
guy's going to get
one
volume.
Of their power forwards.
Yeah. I mean, how funny would that be? They're like, yo, man.
Julius Randle. You don't know Julius Randle can play point forward?
Well, he's my number 5 power forward to jump ahead.
No, he's not.
He is.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Okay. Well,
I
before we
have
get into
big
our top
thoughts about him.
Jesus. Before we get into our top 5 power forwards, let's take a quick break for some advertisements. Okay, we are back. And as Natty has already alluded to, top 5 power forwards. Your number 5 is Julius Randle. Talk to me here, because I think we've been slowly making our way through all these positions, right? And with each one, we've been like, oh, this is tough. Oh, this is tough. Oh, this is tough. And I think this one is tough in a different way, because a lot of guys are pushed high on my list simply because most of the people who are power forward eligible are really centers. And since we're going to do top 5 centers, I didn't want to include them on this list. So, I give you shit for having Julius Randle this high, but I think that there is a lot of names that kind of get pushed up because of this. But here, explain to me why Julius Randle is your number 5 power forward in fantasy this year.
Okay, so first of all, the New York Knicks are going to be bad. Julius Randle is a good player who happens to be on a bad team. 34 players averaged 20 points per game last year or more. Julius Randle was in that group, and he had the lowest or the fewest field goal attempts per game of that group, 14.9. He also only averaged 30 minutes per game. He is the starting power forward for the New York Knicks. He's arguably the best player on the team right now. He's going to play more, and he's going to shoot more. I think his field goal attempts will go up by at least 3. He is only 25 years old. He's a hyper-efficient player when put in the right situation. And I think the situation for the Knicks is we have no fucking idea how good any of these guys are except for Julius Randle. So, like, him and Mitch Robb will just be – I mean, their starting 5 is Dennis Smith Jr., R.J. Barrett, a rookie, Kevin Knox, who was the worst shooters last year, but, like, we believe in, Julius Randle, Mitch Robb. That's a team that screams Julius Randle to you. I think he's going to bulldoze through the league. I think he is really going to try to prove himself as the face of the franchise, because who else is there? And I sort of feel like him and Fizdale will be simpatico. I kind of like that fit. It's a little bit of grit and grind, like East, and he's an actual good distributor as well, Randall. So I think he's a young player who's been through some real weird teams already, and all of a sudden he's going to be the vet on this team. Like, again, Dennis Smith Jr., R.J. Barrett, a rookie, Kevin Knox, his second year, Mitch Robb, his second year. Like, Julius Randle is the oldest dude in the starting 5. This is kind of his team, no?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I mean, I do remember last year when he came in from filled for the Pelicans that he looked great, and everyone was like, "Oh shit, Julius Randle is good." And so I think that he can do great things in New York as well. And you make a great point that it's his team, it's his offense. Like, this is seemingly as the best player on this team, things will probably run through him at some level. And so why couldn't he? Yeah, no, I don't hate it. And it's a nice it's a nice segue, because my number 5 top 5 power forward is the Knicks' old power forward, who they decided wasn't worth keeping around. And this is a lot of me just wanting to speak good things into existence, but I'm just going to mark it down. Kristaps Porzingis is going to be the top 5 power forward in fantasy this year. I am expecting a full health bill. He's going to get the good old check mark ready to go. Even if he plays some sort of kind of limited minutes or kind of measured time, like, I think he's just going to be very, very good. And he can do everything that Dirk did. And so I feel like just fits very nicely into Dirk's. Like, I don't think that it's a shocker that the Mavs made a move for him, because basically you can play the exact same offense and just plug Kristaps in for Dirk. And he is now, you added 3 inches there, which is also preposterous. So it's a little bit of speaking things into existence and just kind of willing a full bill of health for Kristaps this year, which I understand is not the most realistic thing. But I also think that if he does play even 60 games this year, that he is so good and people have forgotten just how good he is that he can easily be a top 5 fantasy guy this year.
But Pete, why would the Knicks have gotten rid of him if he's going to be that good?
I mean,
man?
It's true. The Knicks have a perfect track record of retaining the players that they know will be good.
Yeah, come on, use your head, dude.
Sorry.
James Dolan wouldn't have traded him away if he was going to be good. So you're just wrong.
I really messed that one up.
Kristaps Porzingis is not a player who will be an MVP, but he's a player right beneath that in the tier when he's healthy. And the Mavs are in a strange situation where they don't have to be good, but they will be good if he's healthy. So I mean, it's sort of Luka's team right now, but they have really interesting players, including Seth Curry, who was just a great fucking pickup for them.
Yeah, he played really well last year.
Yeah, for sure. He's a sharpshooter. And they're a team that, they're not asset heavy, but they could definitely make a trade. And if Kristaps, if the unicorn, capital T, capital U, is actually back to form and good, then holy mother of God, we might have another really titanic Western Conference playoff team.
Yeah.
Because how do you guard him?
And then how do you guard him with Luka on the court with him? I mean, goddamn.
Think about all of the elite teams in the West and their centers. Who can guard Kristaps?
Well, it's because everyone in the West went small to deal with the Warriors.
Right. And even if they're big, they can't just travel out to the 3-point line and surrender the paint. So, last year, Brook Lopez really hurt Utah during the regular season because he drew Rudy Gobert out of the paint, and that really hurt them. Again, just during the regular season. Who knows if that will work again. But, Porzingis is going to be able to do the exact same thing. You're either going to leave him open, which means he'll just, sink 3-point shots, or you're going to be pulling a defender out from near the rim, and you're going to be opening it up for one of your other players.
Yep.
So Kristaps is 24, maybe.
Also, just insane.
It's crazy how young the Mavs are. It's really cool that Dirk played long enough to actually pass the torch off to the next Dirk.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a great pick. If he's not 100% okay, then I feel like the Mavs won't play him at all.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's so.
There's no reason.
You just don't want bigs. Right. Yeah, exactly. And they don't need to make the playoffs this year.
God, no.
They just need to show that they know what they're doing. Right. And I think that the Mavs have shown. The
Mavs, they have shown that they are a very put together franchise and that they can build a team and can have continued success.
Even if Porzingis wasn't on that team, I still think the Mavericks got better in the offseason, and I think that they did it in a way that will also help Luka. So I think they're doing it very, very smartly.
Agreed. All right. Number 4, power forward in fantasy. I'll go first. We talked about the Warriors, and I have to put Draymond here. I just think that we've talked about this way back in one of the earlier podcasts. This could be the year of point Draymond again, where because of the fact that Durant is out, because no longer there, because the fact that Klay Thompson is going to be injured and coming back from it, that this is Steph and Draymond. I think you could expect. I would not be surprised from a 13, 8-8 stat line with good defense, and that is a great fantasy asset.
Dude, I love you. I'm so happy you're in Ann Arbor. Draymond is also my number 4.
Beautiful.
That's so awesome.
We're so harmonious. I love it.
Yeah, because all the other ones we've been, different and trying to convince each other of it. And now that we're absolutely the same with Draymond at 4.
This is just a beautiful warm embrace. I'm all warm inside now.
Yo, I just want to give you some stats real quick.
Hit us with them.
Shit. I mean, okay, only 4 players last year averaged 7 or more points per game, 7 or more rebounds per game, and 7 or more assists per game. Ben Simmons, Nikola Jokic, LeBron James, and Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
Draymond Green last year averaged 7+ points per game, 7+ rebounds per game, and 6.9 assists per game. He also averaged 1+ steal and 1+ block. He is the only player in the NBA to have that stat line. In 2015 to 16, he averaged 14 points per game on 49% shooting, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, 1.5 steals, 1+ block. This is Draymond's motherfucking year. Someone call Eminem because people forgot about Dre. He's going to come in and be a wrecking ball. It shows my age, like right on. Oh yeah, right. That thing from the last century.
School with
Totally right. Back when you called it rap.
Before it had 7 billion different names.
Yeah, exactly. Draymond is one of the smartest players in the league. He is not yet 30 years old, which I think would surprise a lot of people. He didn't come into last year in shape, which in retrospect, I sort of feel like, yo, man, you just went to 4 straight finals. Like, yeah, maybe rest was actually good for your body. Yeah.
Especially since he's a smaller guy who's been just getting smacked around since he's entered the
like
league.
6'7". It's like it's him and his ass that have been able to play center. He might be, him and LeBron might be the 2 smartest players in the league because they just know what to do and when to do it. And Draymond is, without a doubt, one of the best ball distributors in the entire NBA. He is great. And if his 3-point shot hadn't deserted him last year for reasons X, Y, and Z, then, he would have had a much better stat line. But even as it is, even if he's scoring less than 10 points per game, 7, 7, and 7, only 4 players did that last year. And every single one of them is a dude that could maybe win the MVP. So, and Draymond is the only one that gets you as many stocks.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing not to love. Also, he's awesome and he's funny, and it's him and Steph, and I can't fucking wait to watch this new Warriors team.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's so nice when we agree. Let's move on to number 3 then.
It's rare.
I know it is. Who's your number 3 power forward fantasy this year?
Go Stuns. I'm going with Blake.
Oh,
Blake
my
Griffin.
God. We're back to back.
Oh, no way. Really? Oh, that's great.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, cool. Blake Griffin, 24, 7, and 5 last year. Only 8 players did that. Here's the list: Paul George, Giannis, Joel Embiid, LeBron, Kawhi, Anthony Davis, the Big Cat, and Blake.
Decent list.
Yeah. A dude that should be considered for, well, I mean, the Pistons are not a team that has an MVP, but like he's playing at a level that is worthy of MVP down ballot consideration. He had, of that list of 8 players that I just said, he had the second most 3-point attempts of that group at 7 per game on 36% shooting from 3-point. 17 players averaged 7+ 3-point attempts last year. Blake had the 4th best field goal percentage of that group, 46 field goal, after Bradley Beal, Steph Curry, and Klay fucking Thompson. He was 4th after those dudes. He is good. The Pistons are going to win the finals. Fuck y'all.
Fuck us. Yeah, I have in my notes I think it's very realistic that he finishes 22, 8, and 5 this year. And that is all you need to know.
Or he's injured for the whole year and,
Natty, we're not even going to talk about it. We're not going to talk about that.
We shouldn't.
We're only being positive on this podcast. We're going back to back of agreeing on the same pick. We have to keep this good vibe going.
I mean, I think our top 2 are. Oh no, wait! You used Giannis last week, so
I used Giannis last week. Exactly. Yes. It's the only reason why Anthony Davis is my number 1 is because Giannis. I had him as a small forward.
Okay, so who's your 2?
So my two is a little bit speaking good things into existence because he's on my fantasy team. But John Collins, I think John Collins is easily. And you wrote about this on Fake Teams. You wrote an article talking about breaking down 2018 stats for all the different categories. And you mentioned it, and it's what clicked in my head. John Collins easily can average 20 and 10 this year.
Oh, yeah.
And even more if he starts shooting threes. He was shooting 36% last year, and he only
Yep.
was shooting 3 threes per game. So I think that's something that he could even increase. Like if he even shoots one more 3 per game, he could be a 24 and 10 guy.
Sure. I like that pick because I think it's really important for Trae Young to have John Collins drawing defenders out of the lane.
Yeah.
Like, I think for Trae Young to be as good in offensive force as we think that he can be, and as he showed after the All-Star game last year, you have to be able to give him a clear path to the basket. And that means John Collins or whoever's playing front court for the Hawks will have to try to shoot better from deeper and deeper. So I think he almost by default has to develop an outside shot.
Which he's already kind of shown flashes of.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, if you're an agent in the NBA and your client is a big, you have to tell them.
Oh, they got to just be all you're doing is practice shooting threes.
Yeah, for sure. And the rest of that team is rookie. I mean, they have 2 rookies and Kevin Huerter and Trae Young. I mean, it might all be outside, in which case, John Collins is going to be on one of the fastest, youngest teams in the league. And I don't think that can hurt you in terms of fantasy production.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, he had 2 assists last year. He had, let me quickly do math.
Yeah, that could go up.
1.3 stocks, which I also think could go up. I mean, he averaged 0.6 blocks per game. And in his rookie year, he averaged 1 and, some change, which I think he could return to that where he's now giving you 1.5 to maybe even 2 stocks per game. And then I agree with you. Yeah, his assists could go up. Like, I think he has a chance for all of his major category numbers to take a bump, and he's going to give you major category numbers and everything. And he's going to get the minutes in order to consistently do that.
Yeah, hopefully he's up around like 33 minutes per game.
Yep.
And I just don't think that we should doubt a dude who's shown improvement. There's a clear trend line. He's getting closer to, getting into his next contract. I think he might be the oldest guy in the starting 5. So he's, there's I can't think of any good reason to think that he won't at least maintain, if not get better. So yeah. I love that pick.
All right. So I'm assuming your number 2 then is Anthony Davis and your number 1 is Giannis.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so talk to me. Give me a quick Giannis spiel, and then we could talk about Anthony Davis because I felt very dirty putting him as my number 1 power forward, and I think it's probably because we have similar thoughts about him. But talk to me quickly about Giannis because I feel like there's not too much more that needs to be said about him. But
the motherfucker scored 27 points per game last year, 12 rebounds, 5 assists. We've spoken a lot about the Bucks losing Malcolm Brogdon, but we haven't really spoken about how, oh shit, maybe that just means that Giannis will do more. Like we've talked about everybody else doing more.
Whole level that we have yet to see.
Yeah, dude. Because we've also talked about who we think is going to be pissed off, and we agree that Giannis is probably going to be pissed off because A, they lost Malcolm Brogdon, and B, he got embarrassed in FIBA. Like, what if he just comes in and is telling himself, like, fuck all these people. I'm going to destroy the league. Like Harden did a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Or like Westbrook does every time he wakes up. Like it is not outside the realm of possibility that Giannis averages over 30 points per game this year. And they won 60 games. He's young as hell. And there's absolutely no reason to think that he can't get better. Yep. And if he develops a 3-point shot, he'll be the best player who ever lived.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Can you imagine if he does that? I mean, we opened the show talking about what if Ben Simmons has a 3-point shot. God, what if Giannis just shoots like 34% from 3? What did he shoot
I do think
last year?
that's I forget, but like
some quick statistical
That
research.
I think that's the dream scenario for the Eastern Conference Finals. I think that you want to see
Mm,
Giannis versus Simmons and Embiid, and you just want to see like the herky jerky 76ers versus the MVP led Bucks. And I know that's probably not great for maybe ratings, but maybe it is because all three of those dudes are not from America. And so maybe you bring in the whole world rather than having like, I don't know, Boston versus Brooklyn. And like, I just think that it's going to be really, really exciting to see what these dudes do. And, not for nothing, but they're all immigrants and they're doing really, really well in this country. And God bless them.
yeah.
Giannis is going to be like the idea that he gets worse is crazy to me.
No, he's not
So
doing that.
he'll either be just as good, but he'll probably be fucking better.
He shot 25% from 3 last year.
Yeah, but so what?
Oh no, I know. I'm just saying like he did he did everything he did last year. He averaged 27.7, averaged 12.5 boards, averaged almost 6 assists, averaged basically 3 stocks per game, and
Yeah.
shot 25% from 3. The year before he shot 30. I like if he can go back to 30 while taking 3 attempts a game, like Jesus Christ, Giannis.
Dude, and he's the most like well put together, gigantic person
Oh,
anyone has
God.
ever seen in their whole life.
He's-
And he's cool.
Yeah,
Like
he's amazing. He
he's
reminds
cool.
me,
Yeah.
his body type kind of reminds me of young Dwight Howard, where it's just
Yeah,
like
sure.
like perfect, like his bone structure perfectly can take on muscle. Like he
Dude,
just
or Alonzo Mourning.
yes,
Like,
yes, yep.
yeah. You know what? You're an asshole if you don't take Giannis first overall in a draft and you
No,
have the opportunity
that's
to.
the dumbest
Because
fucking
like
thing to do.
Anthony,
Don't
all
be an
these other
idiot.
dudes, like they're good, but no one's as cool as Giannis, man.
No, don't be
There's
an idiot.
no one as cool as him.
All right, quickly on Anthony Davis, and then we can get to fave things of the week. The reason why I felt dirty putting him at 1 is just because he is phenomenal. He is a phenomenal basketball player. He will be great in LA. He will do great things. My worry about him is just injury. I do not trust him to be able to play, all 82 games. I don't even trust him to play like 65 games. Maybe that's a little low. 70. Definitely don't trust him to play 70. Yeah, maybe don't trust him to play 65 games. So that was the main reason where I was just like, God, I really want to have someone else. Like I want one other big name, true fantasy stud power forward to put above Anthony Davis just to make me feel better about it. And, if I didn't put Giannis at small forward, then he would be there. Or if I, shifted Embiid or Jokic,
or if you had balls and you put Zion there,
or if I had true cojones and put Zion. That would have been a ballsy. So it's again nothing against Anthony Davis. He's going to be incredible this year. Like he will be what Anthony Davis is and what you can expect from him. It's just I personally, the way I like to play fantasy is the guys who I take, the big name guys, the guys who you're spending a first or second or even a third, but first and second round picks, like your first 1 or 2 picks are guys who I plug into my lineup and I never have to worry about again. And Anthony Davis is someone who I'm going to be worried about every single week because what happens if he gets slightly banged up and the Lakers say, quick, shut him down for a month because we don't want him to get hurt.
Or what if they're resting LeBron and it's AD and this Joker crew, I like the Lakers more than a lot of people, but I also acknowledge that they could look really, really shitty if this doesn't go well.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it's correct to be conservative with Anthony Davis. Like he hasn't missed as much time as I think people believe in the popular consciousness, but he misses time on a regular basis. It's like every other week he's, out with like a nicked knee or something, or he just like goes to the locker room at halftime. It's just that he seems like he's always needing maintenance. And I am hopeful that he plays at least 70, 75 games this year. I think it would be crazy to play him all 82, But I also think that if he's actually going for MVP and if LeBron isn't lying through his teeth, then he's going to have to play at least 75 games.
Yeah. So
But
if you look at his career
yeah,
history in games, 64, 67, 68, 61, 75, 75, 56.
yeah, and the 56 last year
Right.
is misleading because
because
like, if
it was an
hadn't
injured
been,
/ also just giving up on the team.
If
No, and
something hadn't happened, maybe he would have been in the
it's
upper
encouraging
70s,
that those
but
last 2 years, year 2016 and 2017 were both 75 games that he played. But even
totally.
still, that's just
But if you watch Pelicans games, it's like every fucking
Right.
second quarter he's going to the locker room. So like that's not very encouraging.
Right.
But whatever. I mean, that might just be nitpicking, and
But
maybe he needed to take a dump or something.
well, you need a wheelchair for that.
Right. Maybe he's a heavy smoker and he's just like, man, I need a butt. Come on. But he scored 25 points,
But he's
12
really good
rebounds,
at
3 assists
basketball.
last year. Like, again, he's with LeBron James. I think a lot of people are, the haters for the Brow are saying, oh, yeah, but look at what Kevin Love was next to LeBron. And that's totally fair, except that there's no Kyrie Irving on this Lakers team.
Right.
So
I would compare Anthony Davis more to Kyrie than to Kevin
yeah,
Love.
for sure. Totally. Like this is those when LeBron and AD are on the floor together, they're just going to be playing with each other.
Right.
Like everybody else is just sort of there to help them be at their best. And there is a part of me that wonders if they'll get staggered more than we think, just because of how strange the team looks. But like those are 2 of the 10 best players in the league, and they should be out there all the time. And Anthony Davis, if he's not as good as he was in New Orleans, then I think that really has something to do with the coaching, because there's nothing out there that says that he's hurt. There's nothing out there that, like it means that the Lakers aren't using him correctly.
Yeah.
And at that point, LeBron will probably get a coach fired again.
Yeah, that's what he does. All right, before we get to favorite things, and I know this is hard for us, but we're going to keep this quick and succinct. Before we get to favorite things, though, I wanted to get your opinion, and we'll very briefly touch on this, on the whole NBA China drama, because I do think it's important to say we like to talk about how progressive and woke the NBA is, especially when you compare it to the NFL. But this is a clear example that it doesn't matter if the bottom line is in jeopardy.
I mean, it's never wrong to stand up for human rights.
Right.
It's never, never, never wrong to stand up for liberty, for freedom, for basic civil, human, inalienable rights, like the right to free speech, like the right to free assembly, like the right to practice religion, which is not being acknowledged in the Western provinces in China. The people in Hong Kong are protesting. They're not like even demanding secession. They're not demanding money. They're not they're not being, terribly violent. It's crazy to think that an American would be admonished for standing with people who are peacefully protesting for their basic civil rights.
Yeah. So it's just Adam Silver. We know you listen to the podcast, but you've done a lot of great things. And I know that China is a huge market, that it's a lot of money you don't want to lose, but maybe it's okay to lose that because maybe you shouldn't be working with or in bed with them.
Can I also say my first reaction when I saw what was going down was, fuck the Rockets. I'm going to root against them as hard as I possibly can. Tillman Fertitta is a motherfucker, and he's craven, and he's a coward, and he threw Daryl Morey under the bus. But upon further reflection, I thought that Daryl Morey is a very smart guy, and it would have been weird for him to tweet that if he hadn't considered the ramifications first.
Right.
And so I think he got a little bit of shit because he deleted the tweet. And I think maybe all of this is not by design, but he anticipated it. I think he tweeted that out knowing that there was at least a 1% chance that he would get fired because he works for the Houston Rockets. He knows that team and that franchise inside and out. He knows how important the Chinese market is to the team and to the NBA as a whole. I think that what he did was actually really brave because it would astound me if he had done it just at the spur of the moment, like without thinking about it and without considering what the possible consequences could be. I think he probably did that knowing that there was maybe even a more than likely chance that he would at least get admonished and maybe get fired and maybe never work in the NBA again. And I I think it was maybe like a brave thing because now everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
And I also think it was a good GM thing to do because he knew his players were going to be playing in China while these protests are going on. And if he hadn't said something, someone would have asked the players about it. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, why is James Harden playing in China when, China's cracking down on liberty and freedom? And it would have been about the players rather than the NBA as a whole. So I think after thinking about it, that Daryl Morey, what he did was really brave, and it was also very smart, and it shielded the players, and I mean, everyone's talking about it,
Yeah.
and it is absolutely never, ever, ever wrong to stand up for basic human rights.
Agreed. All right, let's wrap it up. Fave thing of the week. I'll start because I already alluded to mine. I just want to take a moment and talk about Taco Fall. Taco Fall is a beautiful person who I want so dearly to take the Celtics 15th roster spot. He in their preseason game against the Hornets, He'll have to. He's gotten too much cult status for them not to. He had a standing block against the Hornets, which was
that's crazy.
Just the most beautiful thing to witness. And of course, Tommy Heinsohn lost his goddamn fucking mind over it, which is just beautiful to hear. He's just wonderful. And you look at Celtics Twitter, they've tweeted all kinds of movies and clips and pictures of him just like being jovial and joking around with the players. And he's like, there's so many videos of him helping kids like dunk, and he lifts them up because good God, his arms touch the top of the backboard.
Yeah.
He's just a wonderful human.
Cool,
Taco,
dude.
I hope you listen to this podcast because God damn it, I love you. And I hope you make the Celtics, and I'm sure you will. And if you do, I'll get myself a Taco jersey. So
Yo, if they don't, fuck them. Are you kidding?
Yeah, I'm Danny Ainge, because I know you do listen. All the higher ups in the NBA listen to this podcast. Danny Ainge, I am cutting my Celtics fan. I'm leaving the Celtics if you don't keep Taco Fall as your 15th player. I mean, swear to God, who's challenging Taco for that spot?
Yeah, like Marcus Smart on the Boston Celtics Slack, like forwards our podcast to Danny. He's like, question mark?
Oh, Danny, you got called out again. Danny's like,
dot. Eyes looking.
What's been your fave thing of the week?
My fave thing of the week, this is totally nerdy, and I'm really sorry, but reading and thinking about how Sabonis and Miles Turner are going to be, and just how the Pacers are going to look this year.
Fuck yes.
Because there's a saying, you always are fighting the last war. And what that means is that you're always applying the lessons that you learned from your last campaign in the new battle against the new foe, even if the new war is completely different from the old one, as they usually are. And I think that the Pacers last year played in a way that won't continue to work. I think they have to change. I think that Sabonis is one of the most powerful and efficient and elite and awesome interior presences offensively in the league. And I think that Miles Turner, if he can get his outside shot going like just a little bit more, I think those two can coexist. And if the Pacers can actually figure out how to keep both of these guys and they mesh, then later this season, what you're going to have is those two guys going full bore with Malcolm Brogdon out on the perimeter and Victor fucking Oladipo coming back. And all of a sudden, the Pacers will again, for the nth time in a row, be the team that no one wants to play in the playoffs.
Yeah. And it's always, I always love, I mean, this is why anyone, if you at a certain point, once you get past just your basic fandom for sport, when you become more invested as a fan, it's because you start caring about how teams strategize, how teams plan. It's why most of the video games I play are all the sports ones, because I love team construction and like how to strategize and how to plan around. So of course, like it's super fucking cool to like read about and to think about like how teams will adapt and how teams will take situations that don't necessarily make sense on paper, but make them work because they have to. And I think the Pacers are a perfect example of a team that you're a little confused of how those pieces will all fit together, but you trust that they will. And when they do, and when you see it on tape and when you see it on the screen as working together, you're like, wow, that is a brilliant piece of coaching right there.
I also think that the Pacers, like if it doesn't work, then they're allowed to say, okay, well, Oladipo is injured and we need to make a trade. And so this year is just sort of a wash. And so then they don't make the playoffs. And so they're out and like Miami's in or something.
Mm-hmm.
But trading Miles Turner or Sabonis will bring you back something valuable. And if the Pacers don't do well this year, the asset that they get back for, or the assets that they get back for those guys could be really fucking incredible.
Yeah. Awesome. I like it. I like it. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast. Everywhere where you look for podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Fake Teams Podcast channel. That's where you'll find us. Follow us on Twitter at The Long Tube Podcast. We will be back at you guys next week to continue. We'll finish up our fantasy rankings. We'll get our centers locked and loaded and keep talking basketball because it is just around the corner. So talk to you next week, Natty.
Have a great week, man. Thanks. Bye.